Welcome back. I'm Robson Grieve. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at OutSystems and very excited to have you with us for day 2 of our Cloud Innovation Summit. I've got a great guest with us to start our day. Tom Jones, Senior Manager at AWS. Tom, tell me a little bit more about your role at AWS.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to be here at AWS. I'm a Senior Manager, which means that I'm leading a team of leaders that are focused on our partners in the manufacturing and automotive space. I've been at AWS for almost 8 years now, which is a lifetime in Amazon.
Yeah, and in the cloud.
And in the cloud. And, our whole purpose, the whole reason that we're here is to help our partners grow their business.
Fantastic. Well, so we are very interested in watching this low-code trend break out, and I know at AWS you're in the same position. Tell me about how you're seeing low-code and how you see OutSystems and what you're looking at enabling in that market.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, low-code is really just an outgrowth. It's an evolution of where we started, right? Looking at AWS in the start, we had a couple of services that we offered. S3 and SNS. And today we have over 200 services. And that's all about trying to get value in the hands of developers, in the hands of users as fast as possible. And low-code is just its design patterns and the process in order to do that most efficiently.
Yeah. Amazon has such great customer motivation. How do you think about speed and what's the pressure you're hearing from customers on how fast they're trying to go?
So a couple of things. I think there's an aspect of customers innovating, and then there's an aspect of working at Amazon and seeing how Amazon innovates and how we're trying to export some of that culture and tooling for our customers and our joint customers. Yeah. From a customer perspective, every customer is trying to figure out what their competitive differentiation is in the market. And the faster that they can do that, and the faster that they can add value for their customers, the more competitive they're going to be. Yeah. And Amazon and AWS is in the business of removing that undifferentiated heavy lifting, the plumbing, and giving tools, the building blocks that developers or even higher level users can take advantage of to move more quickly, to scale, and to be reliable and have the flexibility that they need to pivot at a moment's notice when their user base comes to them with feedback on, hey, can you help me do X?
Yeah, and what gets in the way for customers are developer shortages. Do they have enough talent to do the work? And it's same with cloud talent, of course. And then productivity, developer productivity. How do you think about those problems, and what are you advising customers to do as they work through them?
Well, it's not just our customers, right? Yeah. These are things that we're dealing with as well, right? Yeah. So there's 2 pieces there, right? It's the talent pool, and then there's the productivity of the people that you've got on board. So that talent pool is certainly something that's in the forefront of everybody's mind. Trying to reach that talent pool is one thing, but trying to grow the talent pool is another. And, so there's a lot of training that we both do, to educate people about how to use our tools, how to make the transition from maybe somebody who wasn't coding to somebody who is. And how can you take that and make that person most effective? Training is one piece of it, right? But it's also the tooling. And this is where OutSystems is great, because you don't have to have the depth of knowledge, say, that our initial customer base had, right? Absolutely. Back when we started in 2006, there was just an API. Yeah. There was no web interface or anything. It was just API. So you had to be a developer if you wanted to use it. And today that's changed. So we have a lot more tools that are easier to use, maybe for a less sophisticated user. And that's OutSystems' business model as well, right? You're trying to enable people to be more productive, whether they're a hardcore developer or somebody who's new to develop.
Yeah, many other customers are seeing a developer with a front-end skill set, when they get in front of OutSystems, being able to be more like a full-stack developer, so to cover more a spectrum of what they need to deliver. So really, it is a fundamental building block of what we're trying to do.
Right.
You've been around AWS for a while, and cloud has evolved into cloud native. And as you look around, I think a lot of people are talking about cloud native, and we've done some research in the market that says, although people are really excited about this idea, they don't necessarily know enough about it yet. Can you just describe a little bit what you see the differences between cloud and cloud native are, and give us sort of your viewpoint on how that?
For sure. So cloud native is really just part of the evolution, right, of moving out of your existing data center and moving into, shared infrastructure, or, moving to the point where you're able to scale, you're able to experiment and innovate at a much faster pace than you could potentially in your own, data center. And what we really see with cloud native is there's a couple of pieces that come to mind for me, right? It's the agility, or that opportunity to innovate. It's the flexibility, so you're not locked in, right? And if you come up with a new way to solve a problem, you can do that, right? And you can change, right? And infrastructure as code was a piece of that. And then there's the scalability piece. So great, you've solved a problem, you've built a new app, and now you've just hit a bunch of subscribers on social media, and you need to be able to scale it, or somebody famous has pointed out your app, and all of a sudden, and back in the days when that was in your infrastructure, I've been at startups, we've had that problem and stuff breaks, right? Now we have the design patterns and the cloud native architectures to architect it in a way that you can scale as fast as your user base grows.
Yeah, change is such a massive part of today's world, and we came into the situation, I guess it's almost 2 years ago now. One of our customers, Corporate One, was responding to a demand from their customer base to be able to serve the Paycheck Protection Program. And so their business unit, Lucro, had to deploy an app so members of credit unions could apply for and get paycheck protection funding from the government. And that was a problem that came up almost instantaneously, and they had to have a solution a week later, which I think was the first reason they chose OutSystems and AWS. But they had to have that scale you're talking about, because they first didn't know how many people were going to be there, and even their biggest estimates, it was 700% more than those estimates. And so that integrated approach to delivering something fast but having it be really durable and scalable, I think, is a huge part of what makes this partnership go.
Yeah, absolutely. And those patterns of, what does that architecture look like, and using components and design patterns like serverless compute and event-driven computing, where you were not having to do the operational aspects of running all this stuff. That's, to me, really cloud native, where you're writing code. That's the value that you're providing to your user. In this case, that was this Paycheck Protection Program, right? They did that in a very short period of time and didn't have to deal with all of the operational aspects.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you scale it?
Yeah. Okay, so cloud native is pretty exciting stuff. Not everybody is going to start with everything cloud native. They're going to be on a journey, maybe, and include some either legacy tech or some existing systems. So how do you think about that journey that customers need to go on, and what are the steps that they should follow?
Yeah, I love that point, right? Not everybody's ready to make the full switch to cloud native, right? Think of cloud native as the destination that everybody wants to get to, or in my opinion, they should be striving towards, because that's going to give them the most agility, the most flexibility, the most scalability, all those things that are going to really benefit their end users. But not everybody can make that leap immediately. And, and frankly, maybe they don't need to for some applications. Maybe they have a legacy application that they just want to lift and shift out of their data center, and they're going to deprecate that over time as their user base dies off for that particular application. And that's fine, right? That's based on their business needs. But maybe at the same time, they're moving that into the cloud. They have a new version of that product that they want to release and roll out. and then they're going to ramp that up. And that's where they can really focus on cloud native. Or it could be some combination of the two, where you take a legacy application, you lift and shift it, and then you start to optimize it over time. And one of the ways to do that is to look at, well, where's the cost? So I lifted and shifted this thing out of my data center into the cloud. I'm spending a lot of money on whatever, right? It could be on the database side. Well, maybe you want to look at a different database technology, different database engine. Maybe you want to move to NoSQL, or you want to move to some other type of database technology. So you kind of start with that cost optimization piece, is what I've seen happen in many cases when we do lift and shift. Yeah. But the destination, in my mind, right, the North Star, is to get to the point where you are cloud native.
So one of the concepts that's come up certainly in our earlier sessions today and throughout a lot of what we talk about is that not being afraid of failure is part of innovating. How do you think about that in the cloud journey in terms of trying new things and experimentation, and what role does that play?
I love that question too. Boy, we're on a roll here. So failing is something that everybody needs to have permission to do. And the cloud gives you that permission because you can set up a sandbox for anyone. They can go, they can try things, they can experiment. You can do A/B testing and see what works. And there's very low risk. So one of the key criteria for cloud native is microservices, small encapsulated parts of your application. And those are, the smaller they are, the faster you can iterate, and the smaller the blast radius is if something breaks. So it totally enables everybody to experiment and to move quickly.
So the cloud and the service base you talked about is also something that's super exciting to us. We look at, you said a few years ago it was just a couple of services and now it's 200 plus. There's so many incredible things that are in there, and we see customers who are on that migration journey, not just taking advantage of the basics, but now looking at AI-based services and document recognition and so many of these new things that are now available. As you think about the services that are offered, what are some of the things that customers are able to do now that they maybe weren't a year or two ago with what's in that new service catalog?
Oh boy, yeah. We could have a much longer session about that. But in general, the trend that you're talking about is absolutely true, where customers and our partners are taking advantage of higher level services, maybe services that aggregate some of the foundational building blocks like EC2, for example, and exposing that as a higher level API, maybe something like computer vision, right? In the manufacturing space, we have customers who are using higher level services to recognize safety violations, right? And that's just from a camera, it's using computer vision. And they're able to integrate that much more quickly because they don't have to build that from scratch. They're just consuming something that was already made for them off the shelf. So AWS has a lot of partner programs, and OutSystems is one of our fastest growing partners. What programs or offerings that AWS is providing you, what are you finding value in? What's working for you?
Well, we love the return of the live events. Summits have been really exciting around the world. We've got so many more of those dates where we're actually getting to meet customers and talk with them about their cloud migration and their cloud development. And that's been fun. We are really big fans of the marketplace. AWS Marketplace gives customers an easy way to transact, and it's a standard contract, standard procurement process, and a familiar kind of a road for customers to follow. And it also helps them retire their EDP commitments. So if their big investments have been made in AWS, they can actually use their OutSystems commitments to retire those AWS commitments. And we think that provides just a really great way to onboard new people into this OutSystems AWS solution.
I love it. I love it. We're excited about the in-person events too.
Yes. The talent gap is one I just want to talk a little bit more about. We are thinking a lot about reskilling. We're hearing great stories from customers who are bringing people from non-development skill sets into development and who are transitioning developers from other technologies into OutSystems, and really it's opening up a lot of great new career opportunities for people. How at AWS are you thinking about this challenge of enabling this next generation of builders?
Yeah, so I mean, Amazon as a company has a goal to reskill. I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like 35 million.
Yeah, I think it's something like 35 million. It's very ambitious.
Very big goal. But ultimately, I think, what we're both trying to get to is a point where it's the democratization of development, right? And by using new tools like OutSystems, anyone can become productive. Anyone can build an application.
Yeah.
And that's very empowering to, say, a line of business owner who maybe they use Excel, but they're not a dyed-in-the-wool application developer. That's super empowering. At the same time, OutSystems is powerful enough for somebody who is that hardcore developer, and it just takes out some of the tasks that would be slowing them down.
Yeah, that core idea of democratization is something that, 20 years ago, I think Paulo started the company with the same mission we're on today, which is help every company become a software innovator, because we think that any company on any street should be able to compete with the best in the tech industry.
Well,
so
software is eating the world. It's still true today.
Exactly.
So Robson, one thing I want to talk about though is that, low code doesn't mean unsophisticated. There are very sophisticated, complex applications out there that have been built in low code and built with OutSystems. For example, our joint customer Medtronics.
Yeah.
You want to talk about them a little?
Yeah, absolutely. We really love those complex apps, because in many cases they're the things that are sort of just out of reach of innovation teams. And Medtronic has this really fascinating challenge that there's all of a sudden with IoT lots of data available from their systems, and really they wanted a way to be able to do triage management off of that IT at scale. And it meant hundreds of thousands of transactions happening and at a very high rate of speed, lots of data. And that was going to be very expensive and difficult to work with for the average healthcare provider. And so the system that they built with OutSystems on AWS is really focused in on just that. How do you onboard a new clinic in 15 minutes rather than days or weeks? How do you do so at a reasonable cost? They cut their cost by 50% with this solution. And then how do you really do the most important thing, which is get to the cases that are most important to triage quickly? So we're super excited about that Medtronic example, because we think it's a great example of how you use low code and in a really strategic use case. Tom, listen, it's been great to talk today about cloud native, and about innovation, and it's really, this partnership is super important to us. And so I want to thank you for spending a little more time with us as you have through our events in the past year, and we hope to see you again soon.
Well, this was amazing. I loved this conversation. I love our partnership with OutSystems, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do to help our users and developers, in the coming years.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for our day 2 keynote. We've got a lot of great content coming up still. We've got 2 sessions following here. The first is going to be about cloud native and our approach to microservices, CI/CD, and DevOps. That's going to be a really great session. And then we're going to dive into Project Neo, our newest product offering, and one that we're excited to share more about with you today. After that, we've got lightning talks, and those lightning talks are going to get some developers from our community together with all of you to share how they built some really cool apps with OutSystems. And so thank you again for your time today, and for all your energy, and for your participation in our community.